Well, today's video is all about the emotional side of investing during market turmoil, and especially those conversations you might have with your spouse or your partner. How do you navigate some of those tough conversations, and how do you make sure you're on the same page? Welcome into Dollars with Dennis. I am Ben George with Dennis Hoare, Faith 401k and Money Management. Dennis, continuing our theme of market volatility and turmoil, and today is all about communication, which I know is very important to what you do.
Yes, it is for sure. And couples are uniquely situated, never on the same page for the most part.
Yeah.
Our job to get them together.
Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit of that today and kind of talk about, how to have these conversations with your spouse if you do have some market concerns, how to navigate those, and really communication is always the key. And we'll also talk about the role that Dennis plays in that. At Faith 401k and Money Management. Again, if you have any questions, want to learn more, it's 401k.faith. It's a great place to start. So we'll jump into a few things here, Dennis. I think, the first thing is, what's your natural reaction to financial stress? Because we all handle stress differently. Is it fight, flight, freeze, or freak out, right? I mean, how do you handle that? You want to kind of understand where your partner's coming from.
Yep, for sure. I get home if they're eating everything in the house, something's wrong, right? If they so what's going on? So having a plan and staying on that plan is really important. But being able to communicate with your spouse or partner what the goal is and finding out what the real concern is, because sometimes people are not completely in tune with their plan and don't really understand where money is coming from and how it gets there. And that's typically what the differences are about. It's not necessarily about the crash fears. It's about not understanding where their monies are coming from and maybe helping each of them know their role in that analysis.
Yeah, and that takes us right to the second thing here is just, are you on the same page about your long-term plan, or does one of you panic while maybe the other stays calm? And again, a lot of that goes back to just having those discussions you mentioned about being on the same page, because most people aren't.
Right. And so every time we have a couple come in, it seems like one's driving the bus and the other one's not. And usually the one driving the bus in the financial world understands money a little bit better, or understands investments a little bit better. And the other one's not really as savvy, if you will, and sometimes embarrassed to go there. So we want to open that door and get some questions to why they're worried about things, why they're upset or nervous about it, and try to reassure their plan does work and why it works, and help them get to the same comfortable place.
I'm curious, do you find that when you have the situation where spouses aren't on the same page, do you find that the one that's maybe more naive to what's going on is the one that is more calm because they just don't know what's happening with their accounts? Or do you find that they're the ones that panic because they don't understand the long-term plan?
Well, under the surface, I think maybe they're panicked because they don't trust the one that's in charge. No, I think it's probably a lot of times because they don't understand it, they'll sit back and let the other person take the lead a little bit better and go from there. And that's the overall goal for them, is to work through it together. And our goal for them is to get them both comfortable with the plan, for sure. And I had an interesting client make a comment not too long ago that unlike her siblings who have spouses that support and can help, and that she's on her own and has to do it all of her own. So that's a whole new worry and a whole new dilemma for somebody. But as I pointed out to her, that makes it easy. You don't have to double check with anybody. The buck stops with you, right?
That's true. That is true. It all falls on your shoulders for sure. We're talking about how to talk to your spouse, and the next one is, how do you balance facts with feelings in your household when the headlines are scary? And that's a lot of the root of the problem right now too, right? Is understanding, hey, what is not really truth versus fiction, but hey, what's the reality of the situation, and how does this actually impact me specifically?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, you take a stock. If you have 100 shares of Procter & Gamble, any company, and the stock market's down, you still have 100 shares. So you have a chance for those to come back. And I tell people if they're uncomfortable with that, we maybe need to do something different. If somebody's watching a scary movie and they're getting scared because of the movie and they makes them uncomfortable, they might want to quit watching the movie. And same thing with market fluctuations. If the news, the media, the whatever's making them uncomfortable, if that's happening, they might want to quit watching that. My suggestion is always find a book you like to read, go there. Reading always calms people down, puts me to sleep. Or find a movie that you can laugh with, that you really enjoy to watch, and take your mind off of those things. Find your hobbies that you like to do, and move yourself away from the fearful topics.
How often do you find that when someone comes in that maybe is dealing with these fears over the market, a lot of it just stems back to what they're hearing constantly over and over again, versus those that stay away from all the news and just constantly paying attention to it and worrying about it. How much of that is self inflicted, I guess.
Yeah, all of it. So, I mean, so here we are at we've had a pretty volatile month for sure. I've probably had 30 to 40 client reviews this month, and every client was surprised. If they would just open with, what's my account balance, or what's the damage so far, instead of starting with, I'm worried about this, or is this really real? Is this crazy? And then when I show them their account and where they are, they're like, really? That's it? so, so sometimes starting at the other side and working your way back can eliminate those fears, and it helps point out that even the weather people are trying to sell news. You can start watching the weather report, and they start out, and it's going to be a rain today, and then by the time they get to the end, there's possible tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever, because they want to sell their product. And that's the way media and the markets move, or the news moves. Information. They want to sell their product, and sometimes it's a little bit sensationalized. So you have to remember that and take most of it with a grain of salt, and look at the facts and look at your numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes to our next thing too. What's at the root of the issue? Are the financial arguments really about the market, or are they about something else? So when that answer maybe is something else, Dennis, what do you find people are maybe more worried about than the market? Is it something specific?
Yeah, it's when it's couples, and one of them's worried about more than the other. It's usually not the market; it's spending habits. So when markets are down, and one spouse one partner is spending more, or on things that they don't agree with, frivolous spendings. So this is a time to be more conservative. That's probably the root of a lot of the disagreements and arguments in couples, is that they just are not on the same page spending wise. And when you want to be conservative, anything that the other one spends might not be what you want to have to happen. So that takes some communication, setting some boundaries with each other. What do you feel good with spending? What amount do we have to spend? And I think personally, you want to give them a little bit of freedom to have their own space and spend their own things, as long as they stay within a budget that you can live with long term.
All right, Dennis, we'll finish off with this. Is there anything maybe that you should stop saying to your partner during these moments, or maybe one thing you should start saying to your partner during these moments?
So the question I always hear from them is, "What are we going to do if this is?" I mean, such an open-ended question. What are we going to do about what? Can't change the market. What are we going to do about? Can't change the president today. We can't change where you live today. So what are we going to do? That's probably not the right question. It's probably more of, will we be okay? Do we have enough reserves? Do we have enough money to get through this correction? Whatever the case is, it's not. It's probably, do we have enough, and are we going to be okay? And if not, can we revisit where we're going and how we do that? Communication is important to everybody, but especially, I mean, there's millions of books written, probably thousands of books written about money differences of people. So everybody has different goals with their money, and getting on the same page is not easy.
It's not. And I think that's a great reminder too, as we kind of close things out, that it's okay if you aren't on the same page, right? I think a lot of people might be hesitant to come in and meet with someone like yourself, Dennis, just because they're maybe embarrassed that they're not on the same page, or maybe haven't had some of these conversations about money. But it's probably not that uncommon for that to be the case when somebody comes in to meet you.
Never, yeah, exactly. We want them to come in. We want to kind of help get on the same page, and if we can give enough information, hopefully they can get calmer and more confident in their plan.
Well, you can start by going to 401k.faith or by calling 513-898-1897 to get in touch with Dennis there at Faith 401k and Money Management. Learn more about what they do, but also begin that plan. And if you are a couple that maybe haven't had these conversations, he can help facilitate that and kind of work through some of those problem areas or answer your questions or your concerns and address those and really start helping you put a plan in place moving forward. So, Dennis, we'll close it out there. I know, these are tough conversations to have, but communication is always key. So we appreciate you bringing that to light for us.
Yep. Thanks, Ben.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.